During a career with the U.S. Department of Labor that spanned over 16 years and three different administrations, the White House workforce priorities really have wavered, and it's jobs, jobs, and more jobs. From Bill Clinton's workforce first policies to the Bush era tax cuts, helping more people get jobs has been a cornerstone of the U.S. politics for years. However, as we teeter toward the nation's first full employment recession, that conventional wisdom may no longer hold true. During the midterm elections, winning candidates were quick to acknowledge that the promise of more jobs and a stronger economy wasn't the political panacea that it used to be. In its absence, everyone from Marco Rubio to MoveOn.org embraced the call for not just jobs but good jobs as part of their political rhetoric. But what has changed? First, just having a job no longer equates to financial security. 50 years ago, one full-time minimum wage salary was enough to sustain a family of three. Now today, that family would be well below the poverty line, and estimates suggest that even a $15 an hour minimum wage is still not enough to cover the cost of living, especially for families. Now, the pressure of rising prices on everything from houses to consumer goods is fueling the economic uncertainty for American voters. Now, the federal and state wages have lagged behind the pace of inflation for decades, and workers are bearing that burden. Now, second, people expect more from their employers, like Gen Z and millennial workers now comprise half of the U.S. population, and they will make up nearly one-third of the workforce by 2030. Young workers prioritize flexibility and mission alignment more than their older peers. Gen Z and millennial workers are more likely to care about who their colleagues are and what their day to day will look like than it is about salary. Not only are employees struggling to find qualified and skilled, talented workers, they are also grappling with growing dissatisfaction among workers and the rising quit rates at nearly every rung on the corporate ladder. Even executives are leaving their jobs at a higher rate, which experts have attributed to growing stress and dissatisfaction. Now, finally, workers have discovered alternatives to traditional jobs. Estimates suggest that even before the pandemic, so-called non-standard workers, gig hourly, and other part-time employees make up about a third of the labor force. That number now likely falls well short of the current total. Now, earlier on during the pandemic, frontline workers in major segments of the economy, such as hospital, retail, and restaurants, were laid off, and many felt the burn. Out of necessity, they found alternatives. Hotel workers became Instacart shoppers, waiters became Uber drivers, and the gig economy exploded. Now, fast forward, and many of those workers haven't gone back. In many cases, they're now earning more and with greater flexibility. Now, with such narrow margins in both the House and Senate, the platform that captures the hearts and minds of voters will have to embrace the rhetoric of not just economic security, but economic mobility. Sorry. In the other words of former Amazon executive Ardeen Williams, career progression is the new minimum wage. Now, the savvy employers are already showing workers a pathway to not just their first job, but the next job. McDonald's is famous for its best first job campaign, and Chipotle recently made headlines for its goal of being the fastest path to the middle class. Americans are now looking to a divided Congress to create not just jobs, but the sort of good jobs that lead to wage gains and a better quality for life. Creating good jobs is no small task, but despite the Fed's efforts to cool the economy, the labor market remains remarkably tight. In an ironic twist, last month's stronger than anticipated job numbers actually sent stocks plummeting amidst the fear that persistent low employment will lead to even more aggressive federal policy. Of course, this new language will also require a clear articulation of what good jobs actually are. And during a recent visit to my parents, to their parents in a battleground state, campaign ads for good jobs offered scant details on what is meant, or what tangible policies would help us get there. Now, fortunately for labor and workforce experts, they're hard at work figuring out what job quality should look like. Consensus is starting to form around some important principles, like those that put forth by Aspen Institute's Good Jobs Champions Group and the federal government itself. It's time to start determining what those principles should look like in practice. So if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. You can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. And if you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon link, which you can find in the About section of YouTube. And for just as little as a few bucks a month, your donation can help go a long way, and thanks for listening.